Did you know the gun licensing process has changed in the state of Michigan? That came along on the 1st of December. And here to talk about that now is the Calhoun County Clerk and Norlander, and also from the clerk's office, Patti Stanton is here with us this morning as well. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Thank you for the time today. So, Ann, what's changed?
What has changed? Well, a lot has changed. We are in the process and final stages of implementing Public Act 3 of 2015 that amended various sections of the Firearms Act. MCL 28421 through MCL 28435 related to the sale, purchase, possession, and carrying of firearms and certain other devices, and revised the process for issuing or renewing concealed pistol licenses, better known as CPLs. It also, which affected us greatly, eliminated county gun boards. There was a lot of inconsistencies between the 83 states of how the gun boards behaved, and we would like to say that Calhoun County should be held in high regard for doing their job, and while others weren't. I believe that Wayne County, when we had to have all of our pending CPL applications into the state before this act took place, had a backlog of between, I've heard, 8,000 and 10,000 CPLs.
Wow.
So I think we were talking before the show, and Patti said we had about 30. About 30. So
wow, what a difference. Some of that is population, of course, but still, some of that we presume is the efficiency of the process or lack thereof, right?
That's true.
So how did a gun board work before this? Let's make the distinction.
Well, an applicant would come into our office and apply. They would, once we would get all the background checks back, we would get them ready to go to gun board. If there was one that we thought maybe would have a problem, usually we'd send that to the prosecuting attorney, who was the chairman of the gun board, to review ahead of time if he needed to check on anything. They were sorted out into new applications and renewal applications. The gun board would review each application manually to make sure everything was there. It was our job to get it all ready, and it was their job to make sure that everything was there that needed to be there. Once they reviewed all the applications, all the ones that weren't going to be a problem, then they would go on to the ones that were problems and discuss each one of those individually.
All right, so you have this panel of folks led by the prosecutor, and presumably the gun board is there to look for any red flags, right?
Right.
What would be an example of a red flag? Somebody who has a
past credit history.
Okay.
Somebody who has had problems with mental illness.
Okay.
That's one of the questions on the application.
All right. So the gun board would look into those things.
Yes.
Now, as of December 1st, Ann, that's not the way it works.
That's not the way it works, no.
So what's different now?
What's different? After the elimination of the county concealed weapons licensing boards, that required the boards to transfer all CPL applications and official documents held by the board to the county clerk of the county in which the board was located. All pending applications remained in place and are considered to have a December 1st, 2015 date. These applications will be processed by the county clerk as provided by law. Any valid CPL issued before December 1st, 2015 will continue to be in effect until the expiration of a CPL has expired as provided by law. One thing that's changed is this. We are pretty much have everything to do with issuing CPLs except for the background check and the fingerprints, which can be obtained for $15 at the Sheriff's Combined Department, Sheriff on US 27. But this is the clincher right here. The Michigan State Police does not issue or deny applications for CPL. The Michigan State Police is responsible for verifying through the Law Enforcement Information Network, or LEAN, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, that the applicant meets certain statutory requirements in reporting all statutory disqualifications to the county clerk. However, The county clerk is responsible for issuing the CPL or notice of statutory disqualification within 45 days after classifiable fingerprints are taken. We will send out a letter. We used to take pictures in our office. Now that it will be your driver's license picture that's forwarded from the state police. And we send out that letter, and it's signed by the county clerk.
So the difference is the process is streamlined now? Is that fair to say?
It's streamlining.
Okay.
It's in the process. We're working out lots of issues.
All right. We'll talk about that more when we come right back in just a minute on WBCK 815 WBCK. We're here with the Calhoun County Clerk and Norlander and Patti Stanton from the clerk's office as well. We're talking about the changes to the CPL law, which took place on December 1st. So if we understand this correctly now, there was a gun board that helped decide about the backgrounds and green-lighted or red-lighted, I suppose, applications for gun licenses. Now you're doing it in your office, Ann, and this has been a change. However, the background checks are still going on by the Michigan State Police, right?
That's correct.
So what's supposed to be the benefit here? Is this supposed to be easier and more streamlined for someone who's applying? What was the motivation here?
The motivation was that there were some counties that weren't performing correctly. Senator Green from the Thumb area had an assistant in his office that had to go back to his county 4 times to get his CPL, and that resulted in a 224-page legislative change because he was upset. So the folklore goes.
I see. All right. So, Patti, how's it been so far?
Well, we're still on a learning curve. Everything changed as of December 1st. Our computer software, everything is entered into the state now rather than our database. Of course, like with any new system, there's always a few, a few bugs in the system. We're learning. I think we're doing a pretty good job. I think we're still backlogged because I have not seen anywhere nearly as many qualifications come through as what we have in the past. Just for an example of some of the totals that we've had, we started out in 2001 with 495 new applications for the year,
right,
and no renewals. In 2013, we had a total of 2,177.
Whoa.
This, as of December 1st, 2015, we had 1,367, and we put through 257 just in the month of November.
Wow.
Because we had to get everything cleaned out as much as we could.
Now, you mentioned renewals there in that comment. So you get a license, but you have to renew it at some point.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. The license is good for 5 years, depending on your birthday.
I see. Okay. So now you're dealing with new applications and renewals, too?
Yes, we always have been.
Okay.
Yes.
So this means you probably had to put this on somebody's plate, Ann. Patty's, but did you have enough staff to do this?
We've been given so many unfunded mandates from the state that we try to look at all of these new legislative demands that are put upon us as a opportunity.
Yeah, right.
What else can you do, right?
Right.
However, one of the good parts of this, I guess, if there is one, is that new applications are $100 now, with $15 for fingerprints, and reapplications are $100. Is that correct? 100 with $15 for fingerprints.
I see.
But part of that application fee goes to our office so that we can mail out 2,500 renewal letters so that everyone knows, because that was also a problem, that people will let them expire. We get to keep a whole $26 for all we do, and the state police get $74 of that money. So we get a little bit of that money for a CPL fund for our office.
All right. We'll talk more about this when we come right back in just a second on WBCK. It's a challenge, obviously, and they're dealing with it, as they are in clerks' offices across the state. 23 WBCK, Clerk and Norlander's here, and Patti Stanton as well from the Clerk's office. We're talking about the changes to gun licensing procedures in Michigan, which took effect on December 1st, put the Clerk's office pretty much in charge of dispensing those. And so, interestingly, as you've pointed out, there is a process here. Not something we haven't talked about yet is the notion that you have to have some kind of a training as well before we put a license in your hand, right?
Yes.
What does that entail?
Well, you have to take an 8-hour training from a certified instructor. After completion of that training, they will issue a certificate that you would need to bring with you when you apply. There's certain verbiage on there that needs to be there that's required by the state. And I believe we've been in contact with most of the area instructors, so they know what needs to be on there. Those certificates are good for 5 years. So if you take your training and then don't act on it and apply for your CPL within that 5 years, they will expire and you would need to do it all over again.
Now, what about renewals? Do you have to update that class at some point?
Renewals, you have to have 3 hours of review time and 1 hour of firing range in the last 6 months. We do take your word for it. It's not something that you have to prove. There are some instructors in the area that provide a renewal class at a reduced price from the original training. So that's not a bad idea either if somebody wants to do that.
All right. So you've got to line all this up first before you have your application, I presume. You've got to take that class.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a cost too, right? The class.
Yes, yes. The last I knew, it was about $150.
Okay.
Everyone has a different price, but that's kind of the general price that I'm aware of.
So $150 for the class, $100 plus $15 for the license itself.
Correct.
Yes.
You don't even have the gun yet.
That's correct.
All right. So you've got to have a piece of change ready for this. But I presume the notion behind this is that an informed person with a gun is a good thing. That's the whole idea, right?
Yes. Yes. They've taken their training, and as long as they feel comfortable, and that's a good thing.
All right. Is everybody usually okay with that?
Okay with what?
With the training process that has to go on?
Oh, I've taken the training process. It's very informative.
Yeah.
Makes you feel very comfortable. Have a CPL.
Yeah.
And I did it for educational purposes as much as anything because I wanted to know what the applicant had gone through. And so I think the process when all the kinks are ironed out as everything happens when we're first engaged in any process, it will streamline the process. However, the 45 days with the backlog at Michigan State Police right now, maybe we're just not sure. They were hopeful to process more per day than they have been able to do. And I think one of the other things is it was Christmas, and so people had Christmas presents that they wanted to give to others. San Bernardino, Mass Slain.
That slows the process down, you're saying?
Well, I think there's more applicants that feel as though they need to be armed. The president and his stance on gun control is another issue.
Sure.
So all of those things combined make an upsurge in what we see at the office.
Did you do the gun range, too? When you did your training?
Yes, I did.
How was that?
It was okay.
Okay. Just curious. All right.
It's always important to hit that target, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. That's the point, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So if somebody comes today, they have all their training in order, they apply, they're going to wait at least 75 days. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily.
Okay. What's the general wait then?
Oh, it's kind of hard to tell right now. A lot of it depends on the person themselves and their background history.
Okay.
With this new system, I've got some that have been there from day one that we had prior to the new laws. anything we had in our pipeline as of December 1st dumped into their pipeline at the state.
I see.
And I still have some that are there that haven't had anything done yet.
And presumably there's something tripping those up.
Probably.
Yeah.
Plus, they're
Right.
backlogged.
But a person who doesn't have any red flags,
Someone who
average.
I've had several that came in and applied, and we had the qualification back within a few hours.
Oh, wow.
So,
I guess that's the other side of it. Pretty fast. All right. So folks have questions, Ann. What should they do?
They're more than willing, more than able to call our office.
All right.
And the number to reach is 269-781-0707. They'll be transferred to the appropriate person.
Okay.
Or certainly they can go online.
Yeah.
And that's what we would prefer, since we're answering calls for many different variety of things.
Sure.
They can find all of that online. And on our webpage, it's co.calhoun.mi.us. And that's been updated to reflect the new law.
All right. Ann and Patti, thank you very much for the update. And keep us informed. If we can help somehow in spreading the word on these issues, let us know.
Well, thank you for having us.
All right.
you.
Thanks very much. 8:29.